Hey guys, it's Karen in my review for Madeline's Madeline. And what Madeline's is essentially about is we center on the aforementioned Madeline. She is someone who is mentally unstable. She's gone through various mental institutions, and she has sort of a very contentious relationship with her mother, and she stumbles upon this very sort of avant-garde theater troupe, and not long after she starts to become, more enriched with it, the director of this theater troupe starts to become kind of intrigued by her to the point where she starts to write an entire show about her. And as the film goes on, we start to see how this may possibly harm or hurt Madeline, and how the lines between real and reality very quickly start to become blurred. And that's really all I'm going to say. So, Madeline's Madeline, I was really interested in this film. I mean, the trailer for this one is probably one of my favorites the entire year. It's very mysterious, it's very different, and those are kind of films that, as you guys know, I really love. I love stuff that's really weird, I love stuff that's really out there, and this is a film that really seemed like it was up my alley. I really did not know what I was going to get myself into here. I didn't really know a ton going into it. I really wanted to stay away from, I want to watch just that trailer and not really know the plot or anything like that. I knew it involved the theater troupe, and that's kind of it. And I have to say, I'm really happy I did, because this is easily one of the best films that I have seen all year. Madeline's Madeline is truly unlike anything that I have seen before, and I mean that in the best way possible. But we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. Now, with a movie like this, it's difficult to talk about the acting in a way that I have with other films, because this film is structured in a very weird way. But that's not to say that everyone in this cast doesn't give 100%, because they absolutely do, especially the main three actors here. All of them are at the top of their game, but easily the scene stealer of this entire movie is Helena Howard as the character of Madeline, who just completely steals the show here. I mean, I've never seen her before, really, in anything, but this is entirely her movie. She completely anchors it. We're in her head throughout the whole thing, and she just does such an incredible job. She's one of those actresses where she doesn't even really need to say anything for her to communicate to us how she is feeling. We can see throughout the film, this is someone who is very damaged. This is someone who doesn't necessarily feel safe. This is someone who doesn't really like to open up to people, but she wants to venture. She wants to create a life. She starts to, she wants to create a life for herself. She starts to become, she starts to bond with this theater troupe, and you see how this starts to maybe help her out. And I really loved what she did here. She has some truly stunning scenes in this film, especially one scene in this movie involving her reenacting something that her mother did. I mean, it is just spectacular, and I really love what she did. Truly one of the best performances I have seen all year. It's very much a visual performance. Don't get me wrong, acting-wise, when it comes to dialogue, she still does a great job, but it really is, in terms of the physicality and things like that, I just think she nailed it, and I really loved what she did here. But someone else who also deserves a lot of credit is Miranda as her mother in this film, who is also incredible. This is someone who, she's also very damaged, and a lot of times you can tell that she is kind of out of line, but at the same time, she's doing whatever she can to help her daughter. She knows the type of stuff that Madeline has gone through. She knows, the sort of treacherous sort of roads that Madeline is going in, so you can see how trepidatious she is when Madeline wants to go into this theater troupe and starts to really start to get close to them. And I really loved some of her scenes in the film. Some of the best scenes in the movie are just these two interacting. They have a very fractured relationship, and I really love what July did here as well. And then Molly Parker as well is also really great here. I don't want to get too much into her character because a lot of it does involve spoilers, but I will say her and Madeline's relationship is a very integral part of the film. It's one of the most important things we see in the film, and where her character ends up going was definitely not where I expected her to. I love what she did here. I think these three women, they carry the entire film, and I really thought all of them were just fantastic here. But now I really want to get to the directing and the writing, because the directing here, this is from a director that I'm pretty sure has done other stuff. I don't think this is a directorial debut, Josephine Decker, but it's definitely one of the most different type of directions that I've seen in a while. I mean, her directing, what I love about it is that she just goes for it. She doesn't have any restraint whatsoever. She wants to do basically whatever she wants, and I really do applaud her for that. There isn't really a sort of coherent structure here, and for some that might be a problem, but I think it works perfectly. I can totally see what Decker is trying to do, and I just really applaud the fact that she went here, that she wasn't afraid to dive into some truly weird and out there stuff. I mean, this movie does get very strange at points, and I'd say at points, but basically almost the entire movie strange, and Decker really does go for it in a way that I was very impressed by, and a lot of directors would choose not to, and I love what she did there. But her writing as well, I just think is superb here. I mean, the film is so well written, and here's the thing. A lot of people are going to say, oh, this movie is so weird, it's so out there, but when your main character is someone who is as unstable and who is as unsure of herself as Madeline is, I mean, what do you really expect? I mean, there's not going to be any sort of cohesion there, and that's the thing that this movie very well understands. It is a character study to the core. We see things as Madeline sees them. We view the world as Madeline does. Things that seem real suddenly aren't, and that's something that Madeline very much does have to go through, and I just thought it was very well written in that regard. It really does get us into this head of someone who is very unstable, but is really looking for a way to connect. She's someone who, she hasn't grown up naturally in the way that we have. A lot of times it does kind of feel like she has the mind of a child, and seeing what she does, you know, the sort of stuff that's in her head, you know, the things, the thoughts that she possesses, it's very fascinating overall, and I really loved the film as a character study. I think it works very well there. Madeline is a very interesting character, and I really loved where we ended up going with her, because like I said, she truly is very strange, and she definitely is an out there character, but you really can understand where she's coming from a lot of the time. I mean, again, she's never really been able to bond with anyone. This theater group is really the first few people that accept her as a person. They don't find her weird. They don't find her strange because they're just as weird as her, most of them. And you see that as well, but you also see how dedicated that she really is to her craft. I mean, these people, to say that they're method actors, you know, that's an understatement. I mean, these guys are so dedicated to their craft to the point where they start to act like the characters that they are portraying. I mean, there's literally a whole sequence where Madeline is acting like a cat solely because that's something that they were doing on the stage. And I thought that was just such a brilliant idea, seeing how dedicated she was and how this is someone that isn't ready to let that facade go, because this is where she feels most comfortable, is in the theater, is on stage, is when she's with this group of performers. Nobody is forcing her to do anything. Nobody is stopping her from doing anything. And I just thought there was a very, it just really got us into her character, and I really love that window that it provided there. But the same does go for our other two characters, especially Molly Parker, who is a very interesting character for sure. I mean, this is someone who is very dedicated, but she starts to sort of form this bond with Madeline that she hasn't really formed with anyone else. I mean, she is so fascinated by her. She's so entranced by the type of individual that Madeline is, to the point where she starts to create this sort of story. She wants to center her whole story on Madeline. The big question that this movie is sort of answering is, you know, does this help or hurt the individual? Is what she is doing a good thing? And that's not an easy answer. That's something that this movie very well understands. It's not an easy answer as to whether or not you should make make a story about someone. And, you know, I think a lot of people can very much relate to that. I mean, there are so many stories that we hear that are like loosely based on someone, and a lot of times they may not necessarily be in favor of them. In fact, many times they may possibly be satirizing them. And that's another area that this movie very well does cover, is the idea of you know, that sort of authenticity that I think is really warranted when you're trying to when you're trying to cover a certain story on an individual. And that's something that Molly Parker's character very much struggles with, is the idea that, is this helping or hurting her? She's convinced herself that this is the story that she needs to do, and you can see that this kind of has a lukewarm response, and I really loved getting into that overall. I think it was a really cool idea, and it was a subject that a lot of movies don't cover, and I thought was actually covered very well here. I really loved the sort of story that this movie was trying to tell in terms of that. And then like I said, also when we cut back to Madeline's relationship with her mother, I mean, that is on a whole different level of torture. I mean, this relationship is incredibly abusive, and not just from one or the other. They both are extremely abusive toward each other. Madeline is very rude, and at points seems like she wants nothing to do with her mother, while what her mother thinks is nurturing her and helping her is instead very volatile, and in many ways even more damaging to, someone who is already a very damaged individual. And I really did love getting into that relationship. That being said, that's one of my only little gripes with the film, is that I think we could have gotten a little bit more of that overall relationship. The film is very focused on Madeline and the theater group. And it makes sense, because again, that's where Madeline feels most comfortable. That's where she feels like she has that sort of outlet that she's not really getting anywhere else. So I understand why they choose to focus it there. I just think that we maybe could have spent just a little bit more time with her and her mother, and I think that it maybe would have benefited the film just a little bit more. In terms of cinematography, this is masterclass. I mean, this is some of the best I have seen all year. There are some shots in this film that are truly just stunning. Any shots that are when the film is getting all sort of wonky and out there, I mean, it is just beautiful to look at. The first few seconds of this movie are so odd, but they're just so inviting in that way. And for a lot of people, it is very disorienting. The film is purposefully disorienting, and it does feel very dreamlike. And it's one of those films where you may feel like you're out of loss for words. I myself kind of felt like I was at a loss for words. It actually took me a while to collect my thoughts on this movie because of just how, again, just how entrancing of an experience it really is, how much it really does suck you in. But for some people, that might be something that takes them out of the movie. But for me, I thought it worked perfectly. I totally understood what the movie was going for. There's some very strange scenes, but they are very well filmed and among some of the best I've seen all year. I mean, it is just absolutely incredible that such a small film could have such beautiful looking sets and beautiful looking imagery, and I loved the way it was handled here. Some of my favorite of the entire year. The score as well here is really great. It's very out there and weird, just like the movie, and the editing. The film is quite short. It clocks in at around 90 minutes, and I do think it could have been stretched out just a little bit more, but I think for the most part it flowed very well. I was into it pretty much the entire time. From the opening scene, I was really sucked in. There's this very interesting question that they present to you, and I'm not going to say much more than that, but they present to you this very interesting question, and I think the whole film is kind of centered on that, and I think they did a really great job with the editing here. I thought it was very well timed. The film knows when to cut away from something. It doesn't show you everything, and I thought that as well was a very interesting choice. The movie's similar to Lady Bird in that sense, where it kind of like starts in the middle of a conversation, and again, that might bother some people. It might alienate them somewhat from the film, but for me, I thought it worked very well. Madeline is someone who's very unreliable in terms of, the narrator and point of view of the film, so it made sense why they decided to do that. And again, going back to flaws, I'm really kind of coming up empty here, besides, like I said, with her and her mother. When a film is this well crafted and this different and really does just affect me in a way that other films just don't, and it's hard to really find something, but I will say that every so often, there are some things in this film that I didn't fully understand. The ending, especially, as much as I did love the ending, which it is a great ending. I love the way this movie ends. there are points in the movie where it's a little hard to tell what's real and what's not. And I know that that was intentional, and it may just be because I'm dumb, but I just think they could have done maybe just I would have wanted just a little bit more clarity, like what's actually going on here. And it's definitely a film that I want to rewatch like very soon, but I just wish I got a little bit more clarity there. Other than that, though, this film is a near masterpiece. I mean, this is such an incredibly different and out there film. It's really bold. It's very much a character study, but not in the way that you'd really expect it to be. It has some of the most just stunning visuals of the entire year. Helena Howard is going to be a star. I guarantee it after this movie. You're going to hear about her, and you're definitely going to see her in more stuff for sure. Josephine Decker gives some of the best directing of the entire year. It has a really different and out there story. Sure, you've seen it done before. Sure, it's a story that you've seen before, but trust me, you've really never seen it in this way. I can understand if some people won't like it because of its structure, but really, when it comes to movies that are different, and if you're itching for creativity, I really can't think of a better film to recommend than Madeline's Madeline. I mean, this is a film that's just so different and in an exciting way. I mean, I love that Josephine Decker was able to tell the story that she wanted to do. Nobody was stifling her. Nobody stopped her from going in these very weird directions that most directors would not even try to do. A lot of directors would try to stay away from that because they didn't want to alienate their audience. And Decker, on the other hand, she doesn't care if she does that to her audience. And that's one of the reasons why I love this film as much as I did, coupled with the brilliant social commentary it has, but also the really well-written characters. This is easily one of the best films that I have seen all year. It will absolutely be in my best list, and I'm just going to go ahead and give it the grade that I truly think it deserves, which is absolutely an A. I know this is a very small movie and not a lot of people have talked about it, but please, guys, if you really want something different and something that you haven't seen before, Madeline's Madeline is a must-see. It's one of the best of the entire year, and I don't understand why more people aren't talking about it, because I truly do think it is something incredible. But that's in my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw this movie overall, leave your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.